Closet Small Planet. We again are here with a number of innovators who are working through the Fashion for Good Incubator program. And we're lucky, we're honored enough to have two very interesting approaches today. I'm sitting here with Lona Alia. She's looking at me strange because I probably destroyed her name.
It's fine.
It's fine, okay. And Sandra Capponi, right? And Lona, you're working with something called Style Lend. And Sandra, you're working with an initiative called Good on You. I got that right, yeah?
That's right.
All right. And I hear someone's from Australia and someone is from...
Albania originally, but a citizen of the world.
A citizen of the world. So Lona from Style Lend is from Albania originally, and Sandra is based in Australia. We're excited to have you here. So I think it's quite interesting. Both of your approaches have a consumer focus in some way, but doing it in different approaches. So I thought we would start with Style Lend, because I'd love to hear about this interesting idea. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about who you are, Lona, and your background and how you got to this Style Lend concept.
Sure. I started in the entrepreneurship space now almost 10 years ago in Silicon Valley. I was there to do my MBA. So I was very inspired by people like Marissa Mayer and Sheryl Sandberg and Reid Hoffman. And I was lucky enough to meet these people and have time with these people. And I saw that the future was heading in a certain direction. So for example, Airbnb was monetizing idle space. Uber was monetizing idle cars. I thought what a great idea it could be if we can monetize those items that sit in closets. Women, for example, use about 20% of their closet. The other 80% sit there idle. So it's the perfect kind of like opportunity to monetize those through rentals. So I came up with the idea, pitched at a competition, won that, went to a couple other competitions, won those as well, and then we got into Y Combinator, which is the most prestigious accelerator in the world. That's where Airbnb came from, Dropbox, Stripe, many multi-billion-dollar companies. It's very hard to get in, like less than 1% of the people get into that.
And when was that? When did you
That was 2014, so
2014.
4 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here you are now with an idea, a business that has been refined, and you continue to develop this. So to tell us, how are you making sure that other 80% of the clothing is actually being used in the best way?
Right, so you can sell the clothing. That's an option that you have. There's multiple sites that do secondhand, starting with eBay, and then and so many other companies from different countries that are utilizing that inventory. But I thought it would be interesting for those women that don't necessarily want to give up the item. They can rent it out week in, week out, and make money with it every time that it's out rented, versus getting rid of it and then never having access to that Chanel bag again, or to that really beautiful dress that they once bought for their wedding or graduation or whatever it was.
So am I getting this right, that I have some clothing, and I don't know if this is for me as men yet, but if I have clothing and I want to rent it out, but I still maintain the ownership of it, you've created a platform to allow me to do that.
Yes, so Style Lend is a platform, a peer-to-peer platform, that women can monetize their clothing via rentals. So it's mostly for women because women buy 7 times more than men, and they can post their items on there. Someone else will request it. They can ship it to the person. The person keeps it for 7 days, and then they return it back to the owner. And the owner is responsible for the cleaning and maintaining of the item. Because we don't want the person who rented it to clean it for you in case they ruin it.
Wow. So I put my stuff up on the site. Someone around the world, or is this right now in the U.S.?
Yes, in the U.S. only.
U.S. today,
yeah.
The world tomorrow.
The world tomorrow, yes.
But in the U.S., I put out my Chanel bag or a fantastic dress, or any item that I think people want to use. The other person sees, oh, I love this, it's my size, I want to rent it for the week. And so I rent it at a particular price, and a percentage of that money, what percent goes to the actual owner of
80%.
80%. And you guys all get a
transaction
management fee of 20%. Okay. Wow. And so how long has this site been active?
It's been active for the last 3 years. The first year we were in beta out of Y Combinator. The last 3 years we've been basically live. And now that we are at Fashion for Good, we are working with certain brands and retailers to help them get on the rental boat.
So how does that work? You would instead of just going for individuals, private individuals, the idea is for a major brand who's typically selling things that people own, you're saying you can actually put this out there as rentals instead. We have the platform for that.
Exactly.
And does the business model look similarly, or are you working on that now? I'm thinking of sort of how much revenue.
It would be, the business model will be very different, obviously, because it's a B2B play. So you're going after big companies. And what we would give them is our technology that we have built in the last several years, as well as the expertise that we have collected over the years in rentals. And we would transfer this to them so they can offer this as a new business model in their portfolio of things that they do. And the idea is that Gen Z and millennials, about 60% of them want rentals, yet very few companies are offering them, and it's mostly startups. So why not get these brands on board and control their own brand rather than having it end up on eBay and on Styland and on another platform, and they don't control, let's say, Saint Laurent or Chanel or whoever it is.
Very interesting. Obviously those of us who've been working in this field for a long time have talked about this concept for many, many years. And there has there a plug-in play software kind of solution where they can say, we already know how to go over to this model. I mean, they're good, aren't they, at figuring out the monetization, the flows of the materials, the clothing, but they don't necessarily have a model that's been tested in terms of how it works with the consumer. So that seems to be what you are offering.
Yeah, and it's the right time, because as we've seen, many companies are doing over hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue, and it's really a wave that is coming quite quickly. And what we're proposing to these brands is that instead of waiting like they did with e-commerce, and now they're paying millions of dollars to catch up, why not be at the forefront of this trend, be the innovator in your space, and offer this to your customer before that customer is taken by all these startups who make lots of money. So,
what has the response been, do you think, from the market? Are they careful? Are they?
You mean the brands or the
brands? Well, I guess I'm interested in both. First, you had the private consumer.
Sure, and we still have that.
Yeah.
The private consumer loves this. I mean, for them, it's the busy woman, it's the millennial. She has lots of events. She's social. She loves this sharing economy. She doesn't care whether the item was used once or twice. She just wants access to that Chanel purse or that cute dress or those Valentino shoes. Whatever it is, she just wants them to go to a fun party, look amazing, and then she doesn't want to be burdened with the ownership of it. So having to buy it and then sell it afterwards, or using it for a while and then selling it. She just wants to have access and get this.
I have a nuanced question here, because I'm not the target audience. You said sort of it's women who purchase most of the clothes or use most of the clothes. This idea of holding something for 7 days, I was thinking, that's good, but is that enough time? People think that's enough to have 7 days for the amount that you're charging?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different models out there. There's 4 days and 8 days that, let's say, a company like Rent the Runway has done. That's a benchmark in the industry. They are a $1 billion company now. They've done quite well. So it's very exciting to see that they have set that benchmark, because typically women will wear a dress once. They won't wear it a few times over a week. What they've done now is also have the subscription model, so you can keep an item as long as you want. But if you just want to wear it once for an event, you can do that as well. So 7 days is actually a very good timing. You can also choose to have a subscription model where you keep it longer.
Wonderful. This is an interesting development, and congratulations for keeping it going, and
thank you.
And the promise. I thought we shift a little gears over to Sandra. which is a completely different kind of approach to empowering consumers or customers, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
So tell us a little bit about, again, your background and how you've come to this good on you.
Sure. Well, actually, I worked for many years in the corporate sector, in supply chain management, where I got an insight into everything that goes on behind the scenes of big business, sometimes not great, and sometimes positive. And I think it made me realise that there was a huge opportunity to improve a business's impact on important issues like environmental and social issues by taking a closer look at behind the scenes. And eventually I moved into working in corporate social responsibility. And I loved my career at that time. I was involved in some great initiatives to help really big companies have a positive impact on society and on the planet. But over time I began thinking more and more about my personal responsibility and the impact that I was having when making purchasing decisions. I'd always loved fashion, but I was hearing more and more about what was going on in the industry, and I was becoming less comfortable buying clothes without knowing where it was coming from. And I just really wanted to do something about it. It seemed so wrong to me that people, often the world's poorest people, often women, were being exploited in global supply chains, let alone the huge environmental impacts. So it was at that timing, timing was everything for me. At that time, I met my co-founder, Gordon Renouf, who had started working on the idea of Good On You. I instantly connected with him, with the whole idea. It was not only something that I felt like I needed in my life, but I really wanted to work with him to take it to the rest of the world.
Wow. So how long ago was that?
That was back in 2016.
Okay. And so since then, you've been working in partnership with your colleagues to develop this idea. So explain what it is. What is Good On You?
Sure. So Good On You is a brand rating system that helps shoppers know the impact of brands on people, the planet, and animals. We created a mobile shopping app to make that really easy for people. It's all about empowering shoppers to know the impact so that ultimately, together, we can shift the industry to be more transparent, to be more sustainable and fair. We think there's a huge opportunity to tap into the power of shoppers to drive that change in the industry.
So it's a... give me more specifics. How does it work? What does you go into the app and what do you see?
So you can use the Good On You app to find out how your favourite brand rates on the issues that matter to you. We've rated 2,000 brands for their impact on the environment and on people.
All fashion brands?
All fashion brands, okay. Yeah. And so you can find out how all the major labels or many labels rate for their impact on these important things. And importantly, you can also discover more ethical alternatives, different options, different brands that match your values, but also match other things that are important when you're buying clothes, like its style or price or where you can find it. So we bring all of that information together in the one spot for shoppers.
Okay, so it's not only the as you're calling an ethical rating, but there's other quality ratings on the product? Or did I misunderstand?
So it's not other quality ratings, it's other information that is relevant to you or I when we're shopping. I think that's where other rankings fall down, not necessarily in fashion, but just generally in consumables, where it gives you a star rating, but it doesn't tell you about other things that are still important. I mean, I absolutely value ethics when I'm making shopping choices, but I'm ultimately looking for a dress or a t-shirt, and unless it matches my size or the other things that are important to me, then the ethics don't mean anything alone.
So that is interesting that you've taken this rating to the next level to say these things have to be integrated.
That's right.
Because the triggers for a customer to buy something include not just the ethical elements, but all these other very important practical elements that you use when you're just making a purchasing decision.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's great. I know, because I've worked with ratings before. I worked in the health field rating countries on how they were working with HIV and AIDS and a range of different things, methodologies, and I know how challenging it can be. What do you think, how do you manage this sort of need to be accessible for an average person with the complexities of these issues?
Yeah. That exactly is the challenge that we're addressing. The issue is today that there's so many people that want access to this information, so many people that want to make more ethical choices when they shop, but they don't know how. So we put ourselves in the shoes of the shopper who, if they had a lot of time on their hands, they would sit down and research. They would scour public sources of information and arrive at a decision that they were comfortable with. So our rating system works in much the same way. We pull together standards, certifications, of which there are hundreds in the fashion industry alone, as well as a company's own publicly reported statements. And we pull it together in an assessment, a robust assessment of key sustainability issues that look at how material they are in impacting the people and the environment. And we turn it into a simple, accessible score for shoppers because it needs to be easy for shoppers, but sitting behind that, there needs to be robustness in the methodology. And we think that's the value we add both to the industry and to shoppers that are looking to make a positive change.
So do you have an approach for also improving the rating methodology over time?
Yeah.
Because I can imagine new information comes all the time, new methodologies.
Yeah, we have, from the very beginning, we've sought expertise in the development of the methodology, and we are constantly seeking feedback and input from experts, whether they be, leaders on a particular issue, on chemical use or water use in supply chains, on the fair treatment of people, through to brands and members of the industry themselves to understand what the key challenges are around transparency and tracing supply chains. So we are constantly seeking input, and we also internally have expertise on standard systems and a person that's responsible for our rating system that has an eye on trends in the industry, on changes in the industry, and incorporates that feedback into formal reviews of our approach.
So I'm curious, I don't know if you can tell us, because I haven't gone into the app. Is the app available today?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right, the Good On You app. If I went in, would I see that some of the most major well-known brands, are they doing well relative to others? Is there some sort of pattern that you may see amongst the ones that you're rating already?
It's really varied. It's really varied. Unfortunately, the majority of the industry is still not being really open in terms of their supply chain practices. But we are seeing even some of the really large brands starting to change and starting to take a leadership position on important ethical and sustainability issues. Traditionally, the luxury industry has been especially, lacking in transparency. But again, we've seen groups that are, and individual brands that are starting to shift on that.
So if you don't have information on a particular issue that you're looking at, that I'm guessing gives you a lower rate.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. So one element is of just people making information available. That gets you up to a certain level. And then the next is that you actually perform well on those, which takes you to the next step. Is that correct?
That's right. Being transparent is the first step. And then having, the right policies and practices in place, and ultimately, auditing or certification processes that can really validate you're doing what you say you're doing.
Do you have any view, because I know that a lot of us are working at some level with the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and they have their own methodology that they're developing. Is that something you could eventually use to support what you're doing? Because there's been a lot of robust work.
So what the Sustainable Apparel Coalition is doing up until now has been working with their members to create a standard on some key sustainability issues. And that's fantastic for the industry. Unfortunately, it's not yet public to consumers, but we are very interested in working with them to translate what is published. The SAC is an example of, another data point that is out there that we are wanting to pull together and present to consumers in a way that they can understand and use.
So I just say I commend you a lot, because I think part of the change system, to move it more quickly, we need accountability. And accountability has to come from consumers and transparency. And there's also, we could argue for a long discussion, other types of pressure, because without smart regulations, the things that keep people on their toes, like for all of us, is people shining the light and saying you're not getting to where you need to be. So I think from our perspective, as just listening to you, this is another crucial piece of the puzzle. I'm just curious, since I have you both sitting here, could you imagine a world where Style Lend also links to kinds of ratings? So the thing that the private people put out there, or the things that the companies put out there, also get evaluated beyond just style and
for sure. A lot of our brands that are on there are probably on Sandra's app, so for sure we could add something there where it says this brand is more sustainable than the other. Rentals are sustainable because they extend the life of a garment, and by extending it just by 3 months alone, you can save 5 to 10% in water, carbon, and waste. So, just renting, you're doing good. And then obviously, if we can have something more for consumers, then they can base their rental on, that could be even more interesting.
So I have 2 remaining questions for you. One is, what do each of your organizations need now to take your brilliant ideas and to scale them, or to be successful as you describe them? Maybe I begin with
for Style Lend, we need money as well as piloting this technology with brands and retailers.
You actually touched on it when you asked the question of Style Lend. We're starting to work with retailers that are using Good On You ratings to understand the ethical performance of their portfolio of brands, and then communicating it to their customers, because this is something that customers more and more want to know about, and we're helping retailers reach them and talk to them. So we really want to and need to engage with more retailers on helping them do that.
And if you were to take a step back from your organizations and look at the whole industry, are there any things you think need to happen to dramatically accelerate change in the industry beyond what you're doing?
I would say action, more action and more doing versus talking. I think both Sandra and I were at the Copenhagen Fashion Summit, where it was, the 5th year in a row. And so many inspiring speakers, so many great brands like Stella McCartney going up there and saying, hey guys, we've been doing this for years, doing it. You need to join us, because if we are together, we are stronger. And just saying that you are sustainable or you're doing some recycling is not good enough. You need to understand that whole chain of circularity and where that item is going, not just being thrown in a bin in your store and you call it recycling, less than 1% of the items are being recycled. So it's a very small amount. We still are we have a very long way to go. And I don't know if Sandra wants to add something.
I think we need to get away from the conversation that do shoppers really care. I think that's absolutely the fact, and it's about how do we now be more transparent? How do we own up to what is happening in the industry and talk about it and put it out there so that the industry can move in the right direction and consumers can make choices that they want to make.
Well, I really want to thank you for your commitment and your innovations. I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much.